Good afternoon. Today is Wednesday, June 25th, and I am Matthew Fleissig. I'm here with my coworker David Wang, and we are here interviewing Alan Wexler. Alan, thank you for coming.
Hi. Started in Great Neck in 1949. My dad bought a Baker Hill ranch for $13,500 back then. The houses were put on the market in one day. There was 100 people, he told me, lined up to buy the Baker Hill ranches. And he was 95th online, and he was about to leave because he's not going to wait for 95 people. But one of his friends, who was like 7th online, said, "Bernie, take my place." So he got up there, took his place, saw the house, and my mother was not even with him, and he loved it, and he bought it. So back then, the house was that amount of money, and now those houses are going for close to $1 million. Our neighbors in Baker Hill at that time was the pianist called Ray Barr. He was a pianist for Martha Ray and Patti Page, and they had come to visit him, and we saw them a couple of times when we were living there. Across the street in the early 50s was this famous artist Max Weber, who offered my dad several paintings, and unfortunately my dad said no, and those paintings were worth a lot of money back then. So in 1950, I went to kindergarten at the E.M. Baker School. Back then it was one room, one house, a big school, not even a big schoolhouse. It had 2 classes for each grade, 2 kindergartens, 2 first grades, and 2 second grades. That was it. My first grade, my kindergarten teacher was Miss Akers, and amazingly, my daughter had the same teacher, Miss Akers, before she retired. Of course, she said she knew me. Wow, that was nice. So in 1952, my parents sent me to summer camp in Pennsylvania, and a lot of kids from Great Neck went there. It was called Camp Skycrest. A lot of the Baker Hill kids went. My first activity that I went there was boxing. I got punched in the nose, had a bloody nose, and that was the end of my boxing career. So 1953, I was sent to the Arundel School from Baker, because Baker only was up to the 2nd grade, and the 3rd grade started in the old high school, which was Arundel. That was the original Great Neck High School back then. So I went there from 3rd to 3rd and 4th grades. It actually went up to the 5th and 6th grades, but my dad, who was a builder, built his own house on Gould Street, which is off Nirvana Avenue. So at that time, I went to Saddle Rock School, and from Saddle Rock School, there was no busing, so I had to walk. It was about 3/4 of a mile, so I got some good exercise. I walked there, and went to Saddle Rock School for the 5th and 6th grades there. I had a very strict teacher, Miss Grace Warner, who later became a principal in Great Neck. She was a great teacher, taught me a lot of discipline. At the time, Great Neck was about 80% Jewish, mostly Ashkenazi Jews who had come over from Brooklyn and Queens, 2nd generation. And most of my neighbors there were Jewish. They basically were very nice, and in Saddle Rock we had some famous students. One was Henry Tucker, who was the son of the famous opera singer Richard Tucker. He was in my class. Amazingly, we had one black person in the whole school, Leon Hawkins, and I remember him pretty well. He was a good athlete. I remember growing up through the years. So the high school where we lived on Gould Street was basically a couple of blocks away. The new high school that was built, I think it was for everybody to go to in Great Neck at the time. They had a football field right next to the gym, and that's where they played their football games. So I used to go over and watch them play. At one time, I believe Manhasset played Great Neck, and Jimmy Brown was actually playing. I don't remember, but that's what they said, that he was there. Then the new junior high was built down the road on Polo, and that's where their new field was. I remember in 1955, a lot of my friends were Brooklyn Dodger fans, and they were rubbing it into me when the Dodgers won the World Series, and I was a Yankee fan. So that wasn't great. In 1956, I remember seeing the movie Love Me Tender with Elvis Presley. Now this was at the old Playhouse Theater, which is on Middle Neck Road across from the Squire Theater. At the time, believe it or not, for kids to go to that movie, it was 50 cents, and then right next to it, there was a restaurant, a little pizza place called Pizza Pete. And I remember for 25 cents, you can get a pizza and a cup of soda, a cup of Coke for 25 cents back then.
What was the favorite pizza everyone got there?
It was a regular pizza. You know, they didn't have different kinds of pizza back then. It was a regular slice, and that was it. But it was a quarter. I mean, my mother gave me $1, and she said, "Go to the movies and have a pizza, for $1." So in '57, I started at the new junior high school down the road, and my social studies teacher at that time was Richard Sherman, who also later became principal there. In '58, I had my bar mitzvah at Temple Bethel in Great Neck, which was the oldest temple in Great Neck. It was founded in the 1930s. The rabbi there was the famous Jacob Philip Rudin, who bar mitzvahed me, and at the time, Rabbi Jerome K. Davidson was his first year as assistant rabbi. So they were actually there at my bar mitzvah. At the time, that temple, Temple Bethel, had over 3,000 members, and they had split sessions for the high holidays, which was very unusual at the time because there were so many members. So it depended on your alphabet. Every year you switched, going early session or late session. Right now, they're down to maybe 100 members. It's not a lot. Also, when winter came, we did a lot of sleigh riding, and if you know where Ravine Road is off a station, it's a winding hill down there. I remember taking my sled and going all the way down. They don't do that anymore, but right now, we were sleigh riding down that long, crazy hill. I don't know if my parents approved, but we all went over there and did it and had a good time. There were 4 temples in Great Neck, and that was it. There was Temple Bethel, Temple Israel, which was conservative, Temple Emmanuel, which was Reformed, and then the Great Neck Synagogue, and that was it. As the years went by and the Iranian people came in, there was many more synagogues that started to come up all over. The Great Neck Orthodox Synagogue was also taken on Middle Neck Road. It was called Young Israel, and they converted an old piano school, I remember, which my brother took lessons there in piano. But when the temple was formed there, they bought the building and then they renovated the whole place. In 1960, I entered the new high school, which was on Polo Road. It was the North High School, and at that time, they divided it into North and South. Great Neck South was built. It was built about the same time. So a lot of my friends who lived in Great Neck Estates, Kensington, decided they wanted to go to Great Neck South. So it split everybody apart. The good thing is that we had great rivalries between North and South. Tremendous basketball and football games went on. I remember going to many of those games. Great Neck was a great place to live in high school because it was close to New York City. And believe it or not, I went with friends in 1960 to football games at Yankee Stadium. And you could go there for $1 and sit in the bleachers. And the bleachers at that time was on the 40-yard line. So we used to go line up 6 in the morning and get bleacher seats and sit there, watch the football game for $1. And they also had, with a GO card, you can go to the Knicks and Rangers games at the old Madison Square Garden, which is on 50th Street and 8th Avenue. And it was for 75 cents. You can sit in the upper decks up there and sneak your way down to the good seats as the game went on.
What caused your parents to choose Great Neck as a place to live?
It was a place where they had a lot of choices to go because it was close to my father's businesses. He was an accountant and a builder, and he had offices in Queens, and it was very close by. And we just heard that it's a good place that was starting out and had a good reputation. It was very famous, of course. In the 30s, they had lots of actors and actresses from the silent films live in Great Neck. I'm sure you remember all the Eddie Cantor, one of the Marx Brothers, and all of them. So it had that reputation. So that's the way they decided. Then in '62, it was the junior year in high school. It was very competitive. Great Neck was always very competitive. So you had to get good grades in 11th grade because then you were. We wanted to get into a good college, so it was really rough, getting good grades, and then you had to apply to schools. My senior year, I remember having the prom, and the prom was in the gym, the school gym. They decorated it, and my kids later on, my second house in Great Neck. They had places in Manhattan where they went and fancy places, but we had it in the school gym, and we had a group called the Shirelles, which were later in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They played there. I remember them. So in 1968-69, my brother Lee Wexler was on the only basketball team from Great Neck that ever won a Nassau County championship. He was the point guard on that team, and they won the Nassau County Championship.
Do you know who the coach was?
What?
I'm sorry, was that high school?
High school, Great Neck High School.
Okay.
His team, the coach was Bob Morrison. They won the Nassau County Championship, and he was, they were written up and everything.
Do you remember any other players who were on that team?
Yeah, they had a player who was from the Boston. He actually played for Great Neck. He was a 6'7". Forgot his name, but he actually played at U of P, and he played for the Boston Celtics. I'll come to it. So in 1968, Um, I was in graduate school, and they did away with the draft deferments. So I came back to New York to look for a teaching job. But in the meantime, I had to go to the draft board and take the physical at Fort Hamilton. And at the time, Fort Hamilton was in Brooklyn. So all the kids from Great Neck who were told you got to be there at 5 o'clock in the morning for the bus to go to Fort Hamilton. So I remember at Grace Avenue Park, the bus came and picked us up and took us to Fort Hamilton.
What street was Grace Ave? That's the name.
Grace Avenue, right at the park, but the beginning of the park. That's where the buses came. I passed the physical, but I got a teaching deferment, so I taught in the South Bronx for 5-6 years.
What'd you teach?
I was phys ed, yeah, and then I continued teaching phys ed, but I changed locations. I went to different area of the Bronx, and then I went to Queens, taught in Bayside, and spent my career there. At the time, the draft board was up on top of Squire's Restaurant. Now, Squire's Deli was on Middle Neck Road, right next to the movie theater, and it was a terrific deli. We loved it. Great corned beef sandwiches. They had lines to get in all the time, and I remember the owner, his name was Lou. He used to stand there with a clicker and click like this to make sure how many people came in, and he assigned us tables and stuff. So the draft board mysteriously burnt down. They don't know how. It burnt down, and they subsequently moved to another location that was built. They built a supermarket opposite Kensington Gate, and originally they moved to a little partition of that supermarket, where the restaurant lasted for a few years.
Do you remember the name of the supermarket?
The supermarket at that time might have been A&P, yeah, and yeah. So I got married, and we bought a house, lived in an apartment from 1972 to 78, and the first home I bought was on Chadwick Road, which was a couple of blocks from my father's original ranch house on Hartley Road. At that time, it was $78,000. 1978, it was $78,000. And then the 1980s came, and a lot of the Iranians came over to find homes, and the prices skyrocketed in the 1980s to 100,000, 200,000, 300,000, and it just kept going up and up. There were a lot of schools in Great Neck that don't exist now. There was the Kensington School. They had the Grace Avenue School, the Clover Drive School, the Cumberland School, Cherry Lane School. All those schools became different uses, adult ed or other things, because the population of Great Neck, they changed, the student population. So it was kind of different then. In 1999, I was able to sell that house on Chadwick Road for another house on Hampshire Road, and paid $450,000 for that one. So that's how much the prices have gone up in Great Neck. And I subsequently bought another house for $1 million, which was in 2004. So the homes are still, going up in value because the area is terrific. It's close to the city. It's beautiful park system. The neighborhood is still, excellent. Now, I remember all the stores on Middle Neck Road, and some of these stores, most of them are not there anymore. I remember this store called Hamburger Express, where they had electric trains. You sat at a counter, and the electric trains came by with a hamburger on it, right? And then, you could pick it up. There was Frederick's Luncheonette, which is now Great Neck's Diner. Frederick's was on Bond Street, I think. Yeah. Jay's Stationery, Bruce's Bakery was very crowded, and then it lasted maybe 7, 8, 10 years, and then closed.
Where was that located?
Bruce's Bakery was on Middle Neck Road. It was kind of like across from where Millie's restaurant used to be. Millie's was a very popular restaurant to eat at. So it was kind of like in the center of the town, kind of south of Grace Avenue. Then I remember Woolworth's. There's a shopping center in Great Neck that had, originally the shopping center now had a Woolworth's, Gertz, Stearns. Those are the stores there. I remember Jackie Robinson came and visited, and he talked to a bunch of kids. That was in the 1950s.
Is that Great Neck Plaza? Sorry.
Yeah, the Great Neck Plaza, yeah.
Do you know
yeah.
where he came to speak?
He just came to do some interviews for some magazines, and it was right near there. In the early 1950s, I had this picture that Dwight Eisenhower was in a parade down Middle Neck Road in 1952 when he was campaigning for president.
Mm.
You can have this picture if you want it. So, he was the only president who actually came to Great Neck, I think. Other stores were Scotto's. It was a big Italian restaurant. I remember Lorraine Murphy. They used to serve popovers. That was on the corner of Cedar Drive and Middle Neck. It was that restaurant that had so many changes, they could never really get one restaurant to stay there for a long time. So, but I remember going to Lorraine Murphy. There was Camp and Campus, a clothing store, Stanley Brook, Friendly's Restaurant, which was down in the old village. Then it became a bank, but and then they had Poultry Mart, and now the Wedding Cake building on Middle Neck Road looks like a wedding cake. It's a white building. That was originally a Belgrave automobile showroom. Yeah.
What type of cars did they show there?
They had Oldsmobiles there, yeah.
Mm.
And across the street was a gas station, and that gas station was knocked down, and a synagogue was built in its place, right on Piccadilly, the corner of Piccadilly and Middle Neck.
Do you remember the name of the gas station?
Yeah, it was a Gulf station, because I used to go there to get filled up with my car. And then, of course, in Great Neck, they had Waldbaum's, Bruzel's. Oh, there was a pizza place called Elio's, which they had these small 12-inch circle pizzas that were terrific, and we used to get those all the time. And, they just lasted a few years, went out of business. Now, where Everfresh Food Mart is on Middle Neck, it used to be Nassau McGowan. It was a big hardware store that this Everfresh took it over. And then the Gilead Drugstore was a famous drugstore, Strikeoff Bake. Tabachnik's was a deli that Alan King used to go to. Alan King lived in Great Neck, and he used to go there on Sundays to get get bagels and lox and things like that.
Where was that located?
That was located on Great Neck Road. Yeah, no, Cuttermill, right opposite the old Bank of America. I remember that. Yeah. So there was a famous steakhouse on Northern Boulevard, North Shore Steakhouse. Maud Craig was another famous restaurant. All these total changes. None of them are here now. The only one that's here that I can remember is the Bagel Hut. It's still here. I remember Stephen's father opened it up about a block away in the early 1960s, and we used to go there. We used to walk and get bagels there, and they moved up the block, but it's still there. It's one of the original stores that are remaining. Most of the stores are gone. Then where CVS now is, it used to be first a Dites Shopwell and a food emporium. And then CVS bought it out and moved there. So the two movie theaters were Squire Theater, Playhouse Theater. And,
What was your favorite movie you saw?
well, there was House of Wax. I remember that one.
Is that Lon Chaney?
It might have been, yeah. It was like the scariest movie, at the time. Kids were lined up, and my mother let me go, But movies then were 25 cents, to see it. Crazy. And they used to have double features. You used to get two features there, and they had a balcony in the back. Squires had a balcony in the back, and then theater seating up front. And smoking was allowed, so it was always smoke there. We used to get the popcorn and the sodas and stuff like that. And then I used to do a lot of bike riding, and I rode into Kings Point past Alan King's house, which was right toward the water in Great Neck. He had bought Oscar Hammerstein's house originally. And when he passed away, I know his wife sold it, and they had two very expensive homes on that property.
What was the street? 'Cause I think it was they lived in Kings Point.
It was in Kings Point. I don't remember the street. Shore Drive, yeah. Now, Sid Caesar used to live on East Shore Road, and when my brother played basketball, his teammate was Ricky Caesar, Sid's son. Ricky Caesar was 6'11", and he played, but he wasn't a starter. He was, just a bench player. But my brother talked about him, and then Andy Kaufman, the comedian, used to live in Saddle Rock Estates. Yeah. So those are, famous people. Other Great Neck people, Francis Ford Coppola, Dan Raviv, Steve Coney, owner of the Mets, came. Nikki Blonsky, who was in Hairspray, the actress, and Sarah Hughes won the gold medal. And then there was a big parade, I remember, with Hillary Clinton, and they came down and all through Middle Neck Road. Back then in the 50s, doctors made house calls. They don't do that anymore. I remember that when I got sick and my brother got sick, doctors came, examined you.
Do you remember some of the names of the doctors?
Sure. Dr. Edelman, Dr. Strauss, those were our doctors. Yeah. Back then, I remember a lot of times that you call them up during different times of the day, and they came over and saw you, right? Dr. Strauss actually saved my father. My father was having a heart attack, and he called Dr. Strauss in the afternoon. It was a Columbus Day, 1971, and the doctor came over and gave him a shot to, revive his heart. And then the ambulance came and took him to North Shore Hospital. Great Neck was very big on tennis back then. Memorial courts were very popular. There was 16 courts. There still are. But back then, it was red clay. And red clay was popular, but when it rained, it took a day or 2 days to dry out. So everybody complained back then, we can't play, a beautiful day, the courts have to dry. So they switched to Hartrue, the gray material, which dries much faster. So that's, they used to have a tournament which I played in the mid '80s called the UCF tournament. It was a tournament where you signed up to play, and you wound up playing at a lot of games at people's homes, private courts, in their backyard, and things like that. They had a few tennis clubs in Great Neck, Fleetwood Club and Wildwood Club, that no longer exist. The developers bought them and built houses. And
I just wanted to, because I'm a huge tennis fan. I
oh,
just
okay.
wanted-
Yeah.
I just started taking lessons. I just took 6 weeks of lessons at Parkwood.
Yeah.
That new clay, I don't like playing on clay in general.
Okay, because the balls don't bounce regularly. Is that it?
It's a lot of poor bounce, untrue bounces.
The older you get, the more you appreciate the clay because you don't get the hardness of a hard court and your knees don't react as badly and your back. So I used to play a lot on the hard and I switched to clay because I felt it the next night when my knees ached and my back. So that's why the Great Neck switched to the clay courts.
Right.
Did any
Yeah.
famous tennis players come that you remember?
Yeah, Gerolitis. Vitas Gerolitis had a house in back of the track of the junior high track in off of Arundel, and he had a swimming pool shaped like a tennis racket. Yeah, and he lived there. His sister lived. Ruta Gerolitis lived there for a while. Yeah, and one funny story. I'm glad you reminded me. I totally forgot about this. I'm running around the North Shore Junior High track, which is off of Arundel. It's about 7 o'clock at night. Getting cool on a summer night, just doing some exercise, and 2 guys passed me, going 3 times as fast as I'm just jogging. He's got, he passed me a couple of times. The 3rd time I looked around, Vitas Gerolitis and Bjorn Borg. Borg stayed at his house, and Gerolitis, that was his house. Yeah, so 2 blonde guys.
Yeah.
I said, whoa.
That's like the 70s.
That was in the 70s. Yeah.
So they now, I'm a Cunningham person from Fresh Meadows.
Okay.
So that's where I do my tennis mostly. I
Okay.
tried Parkwood just recently.
Yeah.
But Cunningham now has purchased property or has another set of courts
Okay.
up near Shore Drive or something.
Where's that? Shore Drive where?
Or near Kings Point. It's like really more luxury.
That I don't know. They used to have clay courts off East Shore Road. A place called Future Stars took it over, but that was sold to the post office. I used to play at those places.
Where was the post office?
The post office, it's a division of the post office, like their main dispatch that they put a building right now. So there are no commercial courts in Great Neck. It's all the park owns it all. But like I said years ago, they had Fleetwood Club was on Middle Neck, and Wildwood was right down the road. I was a member of Wildwood for a while. So Great Neck was big. Was very big on tennis.
Yeah.
And now my kids grew up in Great Neck. They all went to Great Neck schools. My son was captain of the Great Neck tennis team that won the Nassau title.
Wow.
Yeah, that was.
Who was the coach of that team?
I believe it was 1991. He was. Yeah.
Who was the coach?
I'm not sure what the coach was. I forgot, but he went on to play college tennis, and it was always. We always won championship after championship for years and years and years. And now teams like Syosset and Jericho have been winning, and Great Neck hasn't won in a while. And my kids.
Where do you play in college?
He played Albany. He was a singles player at Albany. So yeah, we had some great memories, and that's it. So I still enjoy living in Great Neck. I love the location. We go into the city a lot. It's a great park system.
Did you come to the library a lot when you lived here?
I did come to the library a lot. I don't come as much now because I have the internet and all the other things that I'm doing.
Where was the library when you were a kid?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, the library was on Arundel Avenue. The old library was on Arundel, which is now Great Neck House. Yeah. So That I remember.
Do you have any memories about the Village Green right there?
The Village Green, yeah, they used to have the parades, and at the end of the parade, they had like celebrations. They had talks, discuss, speeches and things like that. Yeah, I
Do you remember
remember.
you used to come and to speak?
I don't remember the actual specific people, but I remember, at the end of the parade, for a couple of years, I was in the Cub Scouts, and I used to walk. We used to start out at Northern Boulevard, and we used to walk all the way up to the Village Green. That was our, parade.
So where was your Cub Scout den number? Where was it
The
located?
Cub
Who was the
Scouts?
Scoutmaster?
Yeah, I don't remember much about that, but I remember we used to meet. I think we met at the old Girl Scout house. Now there was an old Girl Scout house on Berkshire, right off of Piccadilly. That was just for the girls, and I think we met sometimes over there. We kind of shared it, and then of course a developer came and bought the property and built 3 homes.
Do you remember some of the activities you guys did aside from like marching in the parades as a Cub Scout?
I think we just did some charity work. We visited hospitals and things. I remember going to North Shore. I remember getting my picture taken. We were at North Shore Hospital giving gifts to kids over there. And yeah, so I had a lot of good memories and enjoyed growing up here.
Well, thank you so much for
Well, thank you.
Oh, no, just one
Any
more
other
question.
Yeah.
When you said you got a good corned beef sandwich.
Yes.
Is Kensington Deli now the only
Yes.
place to get a
Yes.
good corned beef sandwich?
Excellent. It's still good.
It's still
I
good.
still go there.
You still go.
As one of the few remaining places that it was back then, Kensington, that was there, and now it's still there.
Okay,
Right.
over 30 years. or
Yeah,
something like
40,
that. 40.
maybe more.
I do enjoy your.
Maybe 50.
Oh, 50, okay.
Yeah, Kensington was always good. They had Kensington, they had the Squire's Deli, and those are the 2 most popular delis. It's a different town now. Everything's changed, but you got to go with the punches, and you just I just enjoy the location of Great Neck, being here, participating. It's close to the city, but yet you're not in the city. So.
All right, well, thank you, Alan, so
Well,
much
thank
for
you.
coming.